Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Write or Die Show. I'm your host, Randi-lee. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking to Jen Nash. Now, make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button because I want to say it at the beginning now. I'm going to try and remember that because you know what? I know some of you turn it off at the end when I'm blabbling on. So hit the like and subscribe button right now, share our episodes out, and let's go talk to Jen Nash. Welcome, Jen.
Thanks for having me, Randy.
So first off, for those who are listening through the podcast version and not being able to see this on YouTube, I have to say Jen's glasses are awesome and we both are rocking our red glasses and they're great. So go us. And now to the interview. Tell us a little bit about who Jen is.
Well, thank you for having me. It's super awesome to be here with you and the listeners. So I am probably a very adventurous, fun-loving person who loves words. And so I've been a reader since I was little. And I just wrote a book, which I think you might have heard about, that came out like 4 days ago. So I'm very excited about that. It's called The Big Power of Tiny Connections, How Small Interactions Spark Awesome Outcomes. And it's basically about how, tiny moments, no matter where or when, can totally change your life. So like you could be having coffee at a Starbucks and somebody says something and you next thing you know, their brother is hiring your sister. Like you can change lives just with small interactions. Or, the woman on the plane next to you, has a great single guy for you. And maybe you meet them and fall in love and who knows, have 19 babies. It could happen.
19.
Go big or go to bed.
I think that's what got you in that situation in the first place.
Yes, agreed. And so I'm a traveler. I grew up traveling. I grew up around Asia, believe it or not, as a kid. I'm originally born and raised in Canada. And then we moved from Montreal to Malaysia and then Hong Kong and then Japan. And
Why
then
so much moving? What do your parents do?
So my dad worked for marketing for Alcan. And since I know, most of your listeners are Canadian, Alcan is a global aluminum company, right? So he ran marketing for them. And then when he left Alcan, we moved back to Ottawa. Actually, I'd never lived in Ottawa, and I graduated high school from there. And then I wanted to go to art school, and Mom was pushing, for Nova Scotia School of Art, and I was pushing for New York because, I'm an 18-year-old, and
exactly.
Yeah, and Parsons School of Design sounded pretty wicked to me. So
who won?
I did, of course. Yes.
Out of my life.
Yeah, my life. So my wanderlust pretty much continued, though. I would have to say that, like, if you looked at how I've spent my money in my life, I've spent it on plane tickets, hotels and food.
You sound like my sister-in-law. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and then real estate. That would be probably like the fourth largest spending. Like I really appreciate real estate and passive income and being a logical person, because long term.
Oh, you don't sound like her anymore.
Long term, how are we going to support all this traveling? We got to be grounded.
It's true. It's very true.
Yeah. So I became a copywriter and a content strategist, and I've evolved that into being a writer and an executive coach. And so I've taken, my 2 decades of learning and turned it into sort of power punch insight that I can share with both companies, especially now because we're struggling with this hybrid workplace.
Yes.
And then people who are also struggling with this hybrid workplace, but we struggle from different angles, right? The companies want your ass in the chair, and you are realizing maybe I never need to put my ass in that chair again. But at the same time,
so true.
but at the same time, I kind of miss the free coffee. I kind of miss seeing Maria at the front desk. I miss seeing,
it's true.
Bob down the hall. It's
the social aspects that you miss. Yeah.
Yeah. And also just not sitting in your living room or your office or the same place every day.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think we've undersold the commute. Like nobody really needed a 2-hour commute, but I think, like I am very lucky. I've lived for most of my life and worked for most of my life in Manhattan. So
Okay.
so my commute has been, across the city on a bicycle or down the West Side Highway on a bicycle.
Even in the
Yeah,
winter?
yeah, I have my brother who lives in Ottawa and bikes when it's like minus 22 Celsius. His attitude is it's only weather.
Negative
So
22?
yeah, he'll bike. Yeah.
Cold.
Yeah, no, I probably draw the line somewhere around -10, but like, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even want, like, I did walk my dogs last night, but I didn't even want to walk them because it was like -8.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Where are you again?
I'm by Niagara Falls, Canada.
Oh, yeah, I know you're in Canada, but I was like, oh yeah, it's very cold there though.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
you
in the
guys have
most southern spot of Canada.
but it's pretty chilly there. You guys have some fierce wind.
We do, especially because I live close to the falls and Lake Erie and stuff. We get some really nasty winds.
Yeah, you get serious wind. But I mean, at the same time, I'm in Ottawa in the winter a lot, and skating on the canal is my favorite. And we need the cold winters in order to facilitate the skating on the canal, or they don't freeze the locks.
That's true. That's true. All right. All right. I guess for people who enjoy winter things, see, I don't skate, I don't snowboard, I don't ski, I don't even know all that stuff. It's winter, I stay inside. But for
Well,
people who
I
enjoy
can
it,
imagine that as a kickboxing champion, you were never asked to perform outside. So that works out.
no, we have not been.
Yeah, that's a solid indoor sport.
It really is. I chose wisely.
You did. You really did. Yeah. So I mean that's sort of where we've landed. Like now I'm really focused on doing a lot of work around supporting people and helping them achieve that next level and really
That's
owning all the goodness that they have. Because I think we struggle to
oh,
like
we
own.
we definitely do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. So now let's jump into the hard stuff. Although most people think that tell me about yourself is the hard stuff. I don't know. Let's talk mental health. So start your story. I know, I not subtle at all, just like story in. Start your story wherever it is that you feel is the best starting point.
Um, Well, it's interesting. I think mental health was brought to a forefront for me by my dad, who was diagnosed with manic depression when I was 16. And back then, they didn't have anything beyond lithium, and lithium requires extremely close monitoring. Prozac hadn't been invented.
Oh,
And so he made it for about 2.5 years. And then he lost his battle with depression. He took his own life. And I think I really understood where he was coming from because he became manic depressive in his late 40s due to hepatitis C, which
oh,
which triggered strange outcomes in his liver. And it literally, like, you can have dormant manic depression and it gets triggered when certain things are kicked off biologically. And so he was an incredibly organized, diligent, person. And to then suddenly be, at the beck and call of wild mood swings, I think was really, really traumatic for him, to say the least. That's probably the understatement of his life. It was extremely traumatic.
yeah,
And so I really, even though, I mean, we were devastated when he killed himself, I think we also understood that for him, living like that didn't seem like an option.
yeah,
I mean, I'm really glad that there's a lot of drugs that are much better these days and that
yes,
people are, more supported, psychopharmacologically anyway.
yeah.
But
There's choices when one thing doesn't work, they can try something else. Whereas, yeah, before, if this didn't work, sorry, can't help you.
yeah.
So, how did you feel at that time, though, when your dad took his life? Because you would have been what, 18?
Yeah, I was 18. I think I was in shock for a long time. I think my attitude was, this was not very good timing. I was graduating high school. I was super focused on just trying to get good grades and then figure out which college I was going to get to go to. And, as I mentioned, I was like squabbling with my mom about whether or not, I was going to have to go to Halifax. But I mean, in the end, by the way, I was going to go to McGill. Like I'd sent the money into McGill and everything. And then at the last minute, she was like, all right, you can go to Parsons.
That's so funny.
Yeah, which is funny because now I'm like, really, McGill over U of T? I should have gone with U of T, but I really just tried to not think about it, which is not the healthiest. And 3 years later, I found out while I was in New York that there's such a thing as sliding scale mental health at large hospitals in Manhattan. You can go in and for $25, you can get a very good therapist. And I was like, wait, what? Because I thought that mental health support was going to be financially way out of my reach.
Yeah, so, especially in the States.
Yeah. And so this was like a huge thing for me because I was really worried that this was going to ruin sort of how I approached men for the rest of my life. I was worried that I was going to have a negative relationship with them. As like a sort of a fallout from this.
Yeah.
And so I spent a couple years in therapy, sort of processing. And it was funny when my therapist moved away, this was before Zoom and stuff, and people needed to do their appointments in person. Yeah. I was like, so am I cured-ish? Like, have I had enough? Like, do I get a prize? And she would, have I talked about my dad enough? Do you feel like I'm going to be okay to move forward? And she said, yeah, but I really think we should talk about your mom some more. And so I wasn't able to keep seeing her, but I didn't go back into therapy actually until my mom died. So yeah, so like 25 years later, I went back into therapy. But I think for me, like my greatest understanding in terms of people's mental health challenges has been COVID and watching a relationship unravel and then having that unravel you mentally. Like I am very surprised how someone who could totally be normal and grounded could suddenly be spiraling and, maybe not having daily panic attacks, but having panic attacks starting to occur. And you wonder, how did this happen? How have I gone from being, quote, not that anybody's ever normal, but we think we are, right? Quote,
You're
unquote,
normal.
Yeah. Quote unquote, normal, functioning, fine, to not being able to like really function all that much, not being able to, because I'm one of these people I'm often thinking about like, okay, so this person's just lost a relative. I should check in often. This person just had a bad break-in. I should check in. But, I think a lot of people don't do that. Yeah. And our world is pretty isolating and it's very easy to feel alone. It's easy to feel abandoned by our friends, even if they don't mean to. But one of the things I realized is so many people in the last 2 years, especially, are struggling to get through their day, to go through work, to pay the bills, to get the kids in bed, to get the house clean. They can't think about anything but what's right in front of them.
Yeah.
And I got really empathetic about that, even though I was also sort of losing my shit, so to speak.
Okay. So how were you losing your shit?
So I went through a really bad breakup and we had made all these promises and plans, and basically he decided not to honor any of them. And I was told by friends, oh, this is the narcissistic discard. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, he's a narcissist and this is the drop. I'm like, what? So I ended up spending like 4 months watching every video and reading every like medical paper around narcissists.
Yep.
And what happens basically is you're so trauma bonded to this person that when the relationship ends and they discard you, your head spins because you cannot compute the person that you started dating aligning with the person that you ended up dating because they're so different. But that's because they were faking who they were initially. And then they reel you in, and then the real self comes out. Well, whatever self that they actually have, which isn't much, because they're sort of a configuration of mirror images of whatever they want to project.
Ooh, and I like that explanation of it.
It's a really complicated personality disorder, which I was a complete naive person about. I really thought when people say, oh, he's a narcissist or she's a narcissist, that it just meant that that person was very selfish. I didn't understand that there was a beginning, there's a middle, and then there's a discard. And then after the discard comes the hoovering, because they need the push and the pull of the good and the bad.
Yeah.
In order to get that feeling that fills them up. Yeah. Because they have such broken egos. And I think one of the most interesting things that I learned about was narcissists are made, not born. So it's not like a flaw that they arrived with, but it's a flaw that their parents sort of basically enabled and probably created, because generally narcissists are raised by narcissists, and they're incredibly fragile humans, which is why they've created this massive bundle around their ego, and they're so propped up. But they're also, geniuses. They win hands down anything that they want to do. And so the weird thing is as I learned more and more of this stuff and realized that I was suffering from a trauma bond drop, which, by the way, really blew my mind, because again, I'm thinking I'm normal, logical, grounded. Yeah. And I'm like, why am I having panic attacks? Why am I not able to sleep? Why do I wake up every day at 4 a.m. and can't go back to sleep with sort of like terror? Like, why? I actually thought that for the year before the breakup that I was waking up at 4 a.m. due to perimenopause. And then literally when my relationship breakup was finally settled, like the day I finally was able to get all my stuff back, because of course narcissists do weird control-y things to remind you that they're in charge all the time. Yeah. I started sleeping again. Wow. And I was like, oh, this was not me physiological. This was mind physiological. Yes. And so, yeah. And then the other thing that I found that really, really helped was, believe it or not, and this was so annoying that it helped so much, was meditation. Because I was like, it's not going to work. And my coach literally said, well, what if it did work? And I was like, that would be amazing. And so I made it, I know this doesn't sound very impressive, but to me, it was huge. I made it 12 days straight. And
wow, to me, that's very impressive as well, because I love yoga, but the meditation part of it, I struggle. Oh.
Well, I got an app on my phone called Insight Timer, which I really like. And my attitude was anywhere from 6 to 12 or more minutes a day counts. Yeah. Just sitting in that space. And Insight Timer lets you set a gong for like the beginning and the end, but you can also set it for every 5 minutes or at the halfway mark. Yeah. Well, I have the gong at the beginning, gong at the halfway mark. So you can be like, okay, I can recommit if I've got monkey brain going. Yeah. And then I can manage the next, 6-10 minutes, whatever it is. And so I did 12 days straight, and I was having these horrible, like, it was like a body panic attack where my body was somatically flooding with burning sensations due to stress. Yeah. And they calmed down wildly. Like, it was like, people were like, oh, you're having hot flashes. But I'm like, but why are my shoulders and my ankles burning? That seems very weird. And I think it was literally just like a physical mental breakdown. Yep.
Well, and that's just that our mind and our body are so interconnected that a lot of people don't realize that when you're going through some kind of mental issue, trauma, or whatever it happens to be, it can manifest physically. And
Oh,
a
it
lot of
did.
people don't want to realize that.
It did. And it's funny because the year before we broke up, when things, I mean, at the beginning of COVID, things just, started going terribly awry. And I'm sure a lot of people, actually, I'm not sure. Some people seem to have the same experience. And then a lot of people had the opposite experience. And I'm thrilled for all the people whose COVID relationships got tighter and deeper and they love each other more. That sounds great. Aw, I'm so happy. That's amazing. No, I'm really genuinely happy for you. But I think it's also fascinating how it just showed a huge spotlight on, the problems in other people's relationships as it did with mine. And I mean, I really tried, because like we sort of broke up after like 5 months into COVID. And then I was like, okay, classic, it's all me, which is sort of the message I was being told. It's all you. You're just too harsh. You're too strong. You're too bold. I doubled down. At one point I had like a guide and like a coach and a therapist. And I was like, this is a lot. And I'm trying to like live a life and work and all the rest of it. And I was shocked, this waking up at 4 a.m. with the whole body flushing, almost like I was enraged. I think I was enraged.
Yeah.
And I didn't speak body. Yeah. And it's been a year of learning how to speak body.
Yeah.
Which has been interesting. Exactly. Somatic therapy. Who knew?
Yeah. A lot of people. It's a really big topic, but the general population has no idea about it.
Agreed. Have you ever had an experience where your body was powerfully reacting to a psychological thing you were dealing with?
Well, this might be super extreme, but when I had cancer 3 years ago, my life was completely falling apart. So could have been related. I don't know. But there was definitely a correlation between the two.
What, was it a heart fall apart?
No. So my kid, who has autism, anxiety, depression, all that stuff, he was trying to kill himself multiple times, in and out the hospital, being called at work to go pick him up from school. The school didn't know what to do with him. The superintendent basically put him in a different school that didn't work. So then we were homeschooling, and dealing with all of these violent meltdowns. And I didn't know what else to do. My depression was like through the roof. And I didn't know what else to do. I was so tired of everything.
Do you mind sharing what kind of cancer it was?
Cervical.
Interesting. Okay. So that's interesting, because cervical is, do you ever talk about chakras on your program?
I have had one person talk about chakras. Yes.
So, the cervical cancer is a chakra 1 problem. And your first chakra is your family, where you're from, who your people are, your grounding, and honestly, your real estate. So how stable you are.
There you go. So maybe.
I mean, there may have been some alignment. There's an amazing author by the name of Carolyn Mace, and she has a fantastic book called Energy of Anatomy. Okay. And then she has another book which put her on the map, which is called Why People Heal and Why People Don't Heal and How They Can. And her idea that you might find interesting, and I think that really does apply to mental health in some respects, is every day you wake up, you get $100 of energy to spend. Okay. If before you've even crossed the room, you've given, $10 to your ex-husband, $5 to your dad because he drove you nuts, $40 to your boss because he's currently just like a giant pain. Like, you've only got like around $40 to get through the rest of the day. So come 9 o'clock at night when you're exhausted, but you still have another hour and a half of stuff to do with your kids, your dog, your house. Where's that energy coming from? what organ area are you pulling it from?
Yeah.
That's generally where the dis-ease will occur, because it's out of balance. It's really interesting, I think.
It is interesting. Yeah, I've taken a lot of different yoga trainings and stuff, and that is one of the biggest parts of it, is talking about how the body speaks the mind. It's one of the books we had to read for it. So
it's called The Body Speaks the Mind.
The Body Speaks the Mind. I cannot remember who wrote it, but it's called The Body Speaks the Mind.
I love that title.
I know, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's right up there with dis-ease.
Yes.
Which I think is fascinating. You know, the lack of ease makes perfect sense, really.
Exactly.
And I think it really does align with the notion that, you know, I really thought I was going crazy. Like 2020, I thought I was going crazy partially because of the waking up at 4 a.m. and just being like it wasn't just waking up. It was sort of like waking up at 400 miles an hour, like, whew. And that's not how I historically have been. I'm historically a good sleeper. Yeah. But like when you wake up like that and then you have these strange flushes, and I am 51. So I was like, oh, this is perimenopause. Really? Yeah.
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, I hide it well. But I have lived a long life. But I thought, oh, that's what it is. But oddly, since everything's calmed down and I've put more barriers in place in my life, and I've, you know, tried to go no contact as best I can, because that's what all the videos say you got to do with a narcissist. It's all fine and good. Like literally, I'm like so much better. It's shocking.
That is fantastic to hear.
Yeah,
definitely. All the literature says you gotta cut them out, because they're gonna use their skills, because they got some serious
they are
manipulating
winners.
Skills. Like they are winners. Yes. So you cannot give them an inch, because they will take a mile.
And I think more than anything, I've learned to look at myself, because remember, I am 50% of this equation. Like, it's not his fault that I chose to get into it. I chose to get into it. But like, we're empaths generally, the people that they want, because they want people that absolutely are going to prioritize their needs. Makes perfect sense that they would go after, you know, empaths who probably have a large side of codependency in their personality. And so I've had to really look at how I show up in the world, and that led me to coaching and being more aware of coach type offerings. And I was, you know, feeling so disconnected in my relationship and in my life because of COVID. That's actually how I ended up writing the book called The Big Power of Tiny Connections. And I finished the first draft right before my birthday in 2020. And then I hired a developmental editor. And so last year she was like, it's an adorable book. Nobody needs to read it. However, if you're willing to completely rewrite it and add, you know, this, that, and the other thing and restructure it, I think you have something here. And so I completely rewrote it at the beginning of last year. And then we broke up, and so my world blew up and I had to move and change houses, which takes a lot of effort, you know? And then
takes a lot more than $100 you have for the day.
Yeah, it does actually. So I really had to put it on pause, but through like coaching and friendships and how people showed up in my life, I just continually really breathed into the idea that how we connect is so important, not only for our day-to-day well-being, but for our whole lives.
Yes.
And so exactly. I really wanted to like get this out there, but it definitely started this book while I was tremendously lonely, deeply lonely. Yeah. So my mental health was definitely in question.
Yeah. But I'm glad that you got it done. So speaking of the book, let's jump to the book. And where do people get it?
You can buy it at Chapters or Barnes and Nobles or Amazon.com or pretty much any bookstore. Just ask them to order it in. They'll order it in. Just ask for, a book by Jen Nash that's not about diabetes. Apparently Jen Nash has written a book about diabetes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go Jen.
Gotta like add your middle initial in there or something.
Yeah, I just feel like Jen Nash, the 2-syllable thing was really easy, but
It is, but if somebody else has got it.
I would say this is a great book for anybody that just wants to get more out of life, because the book is organized into chapters about like how tiny connections can get you a better job, can help you make more money, can help make you a better person, can help get you invited to more parties, can even help you get laid more. And I mean, I broke it down into all the things that people want. And then the part 3 of the book is getting practical, is more corporate initiatives. Like, how can companies support hybrid workplaces? What can they do to really help people feel supported? Because right now, retention is such a huge problem. Like, people are so unhappy in our lives. I think that a CEO said this to me 2 weeks ago. She said, we're so unhappy because of COVID. We can't move because that's too much. We can't like divorce our partners because that's too much. You know, we can't get rid of our kids or our cats because that's not allowed. So what does that leave us in terms of if we're hungry for change? She's like, oh, you quit your job. And they've never experienced basically people bailing at a rate of over 20%.
Wow.
And I think a lot of companies are seeing that. Yeah. And so I'm really leaning into working with human resources, learning and developmental groups around retention and acquisition through connection, because culture, I think, is going to be like everything.
Oh,
because that's what's going to keep people engaged.
Exactly. People, I mean, there's jobs out there. If you want to look for a new one, you can go and look for a new one, but finding a job where you are happy to go to every day, you look forward to going to, that's what's hard. So it's all about the culture. It's all about the way that your boss treats you. Not like, of course, the paycheck's important too, but it's about how you're treated. Are you treated with respect? Are you given room to grow, to be creative, to use what you have? That's when you want to stay.
Yes, I think that's very well said, Randi. And I think it's really important that, you know, companies realize that we've been offering dry cleaning and free food at fancy companies for a long time, but also offering, you know, coaching and mental health services, even like massages, like, because, you know, massage releases oxytocin, which literally calms our brains and our parasympathetic nervous systems. Like, all of that can actually make us better employees, because happier employees are more productive. And when employees are encouraged to foster friendships at work, their chances of staying longer are over 75% higher.
I believe
because they like where they work. It's like going to see their friends. It's perfectly logical. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. You spend a lot of time at work. You might as well enjoy it.
Yep, absolutely. By the way, they can also get the book on my website, which is jennash.com, JENNASH.com. So that's easy.
Perfect. So then that brings me to the next part, is where do people follow you?
You can follow me. You know, I'm on Instagram, but I'm probably going to be shifting, but they're welcome to follow me at moneyinstigator.com. I'm very passionate about encouraging women to know their worth around money. And so I put a lot of work into building out a brand around female financial empowerment. And you can read more about that at moneyinstigator.com if they want to check that out. Cool. But I'm definitely all about ladies understanding how critical it is that we start negotiating from an early age. But yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that. But you could also follow me on Twitter. I'm Jen Nash.
Okay. I can't. I don't Twitter, but other people can.
Yes. Well, I mean, you're going to inspire me to start TikToking.
Oh my goodness, it's so much fun. You have to TikTok. So I got my husband into TikToking. So he, at first, for the past couple months, he's only just been scrolling. He hasn't posted nothing. He just likes watching them. And so he is now posting what he's doing. So what his thing is, he's at Socks Guy. So it's Sock X Guy or Socks Guy. And he's putting on a new pair of socks, a completely different pair of socks for 365 days.
Wow. Is he getting sponsorship?
That's his goal. He wants to get a sponsorship so he can have different socks. So for Christmas, the Christmas that just passed, I bought him 130 pairs of socks to start him off well.
He loves you.
I said, if this is your midlife crisis, you just, want 365 pairs of socks, then have at her.
Good. Oh yeah, that's a really good one. I like that better than any one of the else's that I've had to deal with. I'm digging this for you, Randi. What's your TikTok handle?
My TikTok handle is at Right or Die Show.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. But then I also have one for my animals who actually have way more followers than I do because I mean animals. And they are at Fred, Daff, and the Gang. So Fred.
Yeah.
And then Daff is DAPH.
Yeah.
And the Gang.
You have a pet named The Game?
No, the Gang. GANG.
Got it. Yes. It's good that I clarified.
Exactly. And also I'll throw my links down in the description below as well as Jen's, of course. They will be first. And then I'll throw those couple down there below in case anybody's like, hey, yeah, I want to follow Socks Guy or see adorable animals because I now have 3 dogs. We just got another dog before Christmas, a puppy.
Oh.
And 4 cats. So we have some adventures on the TikTok. Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome. I will absolutely follow you. That would be delightful.
Yes. And then you'll get the TikTok bug and that's it.
And then I'll be joining.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you.
So do you have any last pieces of advice for our viewers, listeners?
I think that based on, having talked about mental health and connection, I think that one of my favorite pieces of advice, which is actually in the book, is around, a lot of the times we don't want to do stuff, we don't feel up for it. We're not in the mood. And we have a pretty aggressive little negative voice in our head that's saying, we don't need to do that. We'll be fine if we don't. I list out a whole bunch of things that we tend to lean into when we're trying to avoid connecting. But I think if we can bribe ourselves, for instance, like, okay, I'll go for an hour and then I can watch, 2 episodes of Ted Lasso or something.
Yeah.
We're going to, in the long run, be more supportive of ourselves because the isolation and the not connecting and the not reaching out and the not going on a Zoom where you might end up in an interesting breakout room with someone is really hurting us, I think, individually as well as a culture. So I would encourage people to come up with their favorite way to bribe themselves so that, like, even if it's just once a week, they're managing to push themselves through that hump.
Yeah. And it's what we do with kids. It's what we do with dogs, right? We bribe them with something. Hey, you get 5 extra minutes of bedtime or TV time or a cookie for the dogs, right? So find something, a healthy something, of course.
A healthy something, for sure. Yeah. How about you? You got any last minute tips from your New Year's year? Because you just had a New Year's weekend. You might have some awesome tips.
That's true. So I would say the biggest lesson that I learned last year that I'm, really promoting, and it's actually what I named one of my books that I published last year, is embrace yourself. Well, I called it embracing me, but embrace yourself, embrace everything that is you. Actually, if you haven't seen the movie Encanto, that's entirely what the movie is about. It's the new Disney cartoon movie, and that's entirely what the movie is about, is embracing who you are because you are an amazing person just the way you are. So that is, everybody needs to keep that message with them. And if you haven't watched that movie, watch it because it gets the message across really well, and it's got some awesome songs.
Oh, good. I'm in. I need something fun, charming, and self-supporting to watch. I love it.
Perfect. And that's your go-to for it. I've been listening to the playlist on like repeat on Spotify. because
Yeah,
I just really like those songs. They're so good.
oh, that's awesome. I'm in. Thank you. And I mean,
Awesome.
I'm a big fan of letting our lights shine, you know, because nobody's light is like your light. And I explained it to someone who was really struggling with depression this way. I said, you're a crystal. And when light bounces through you and refracts against the wall, it's always going to be just the way it comes out of you. It's not the way, like my light would be very different than your light.
Yeah.
So please let the light refract against the wall because I want to see what your light looks like.
I love that. So, on that note, thank you so much, Jen, for being on the show and sharing with us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Randy. I've really enjoyed my time with you.
So, we have a sponsor for today's episode. It is Taylor Smith Design. And I have been using the services for, I guess, almost over a year now. I use the do it yourself services, and it makes posting on my social media so much easier. Seriously. They have a user-friendly platform where I can schedule all of my posts for the whole year on multiple social sites at the same time. The best part about it is that I can create recurring posts so that I don't have to constantly redo the same thing. It works great for promoting my books. Plus, if you run multiple businesses like I do, since I'm my kid's momager, you can hook it up to multiple accounts. One price for all of your needs, and it saves so much time. Depending on the level that you sign up for, it can do so much more than just that. I'm still trying to figure out some of the features that it offers. If you need an affordable solution for your social media needs, then go to getseensocial.ca, use code write or die to get your first month totally free. All right. Who doesn't like free? Remember, you want to go to getseensocial.ca and use the code write or die. Get that first month free. So remember, those links are going to be down in the description below so you can get a hold of Jen's books, as well as, of course, follow everybody on TikTok, including my very strange husband that is going to have 365 different pairs of socks. I don't get why, but it's a lot better than buying a new sports car. Or just a sports car. Saying a new sports car implies he has one, and he doesn't. And he's not going to. As well, we do have a merch store. 10% of the proceeds goes back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. And remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly.